Hello, this is Lesley Chatman. I am part of Chase D. Mock's literary class. I have chosen a poem today to recite to you called Traveling Through the Dark by William Stafford. Now, if you want to, this poem can be found on page 574 in our book, or I have a link at the bottom that you can click to open, and you can do it side by side. It makes it a little bit easier to watch the video and read the poem at the same time, whichever is good for you. Alrighty. Traveling through the dark. Traveling through the dark, I found a deer, dead on the edge of Wilson River Road. It is usually best to roll them into the canyon. The road is narrow. To swerve might make more dead. By glow of the tail light, I stumbled back of the car and stood by the heap. A doe, a recent killing. She had stiffened already, almost cold. I dragged her off. She was large in the belly. My fingers touching her side brought me the reason. Her side was warm. Her fawn lay there, waiting. Alive, still, never to be born. Beside that mountain road, I hesitated. The car aimed ahead its lowered parking lights. Under the hood purred the sturdy engine. I stood in the glare of the warm exhaust, turning red. Around our group I could hear the wilderness listen. I thought hard for us all, my only swerving, then pushed her over the edge into the river. Alrighty. Now, first and foremost, why did I choose this poem? This was not my first choice, actually. I had another one picked out, had it all worked out and everything. But I stumbled upon this by accident, and I fell in love with it. The literal sense of the poem is this deer has been hit, and this narrator needs to move the deer off the side of the road, just like anybody in today's society would know to do, to get it out of the middle of the road so no one else could get hit or killed, or our own human nature is to protect ourselves. But the symbolism of this dead deer stands for way more than just, I hit a deer on the side of the road. It stands for human nature and life. Life itself can end so abruptly or get really, really good, but that we never know. So when we go through this analysis, remember Stafford's use of the two themes, life can change, and what do we do when no one else is watching our actions? Do we choose the easy way, rolling the doe off into the canyon, or the right way, rolling the doe and her fawn still alive into the river? Now, Stafford wrote this poem in free verse. It isn't in any pentameter. It doesn't have a setup. He did it that way to showcase the story in the way of a river, just as he uses in many other of his works. A river symbolizes actually how life goes. It can change paths. It can go a corner, go down a different way. It can be rough. It can be easy. You can pedal faster. You could try to stop. But that's why he used free verse, in my interpretation, is that he wanted to showcase how life really was. It's not just a setup pattern. It's free to whomever and how you live your life. And that really hits home with the narrator a little later on. Now we'll start off with the naming of the poem, Traveling Through the Dark. Now Stafford named the poem Traveling Through the Dark after the first line. Traveling through the dark, I found a deer. Traveling through the dark can also stand for we travel through life in the dark. We don't know what's going to happen next. We can try to plan, we can set things up, but in the long run, we don't know what's going to happen. Traveling through the dark. I found a deer. Now in the beginning of this line, in this whole line, you think this could be a happy story. Finds a deer. Deer are usually beautiful animals. You look at them, they're pretty. But he crushes that in the second line very quickly. Traveling through the dark, I found a deer, dead on the edge of Wilson River Road. Okay, clearly he's on a road, meaning the deer got hit. Wilson River Road. We know there's going to be a river on one side of the road. Now Stafford uses the word edge rather than just stating side of the road. He uses edge to symbolize how we, going through life, are on the edge. We are on the edge of something greater, on the edge of something terrible, but we are always there. We never know what's going to happen. And in this deer's life, she had hit the edge. And actually, for the fawn's life, they're on the edge at this point. They don't know what's going to happen. It is usually best to roll them into the canyon. So we have a road, river on one side, canyon on the other. This stands for the path that we choose, which way are we going to go, that showcases how we are, human nature. Canyon being the easy way, river being the right way. That road is narrow. To swerve might make more dead. So to push the deer off into the river, it's going to be narrow. Cars might not be able to see you, and if a car does come around that corner, it could kill the narrator. And then that's part of the human nature, is to survive. So of course he's going to go to the canyon way right off the bat. It's the safest way. To swerve might make more dead. Swerve, so if a car was coming around, it could swerve and hit him, make more dead. He would die as well as the deer, and maybe even the driver and passengers in that car. So clearly, narrator's using reason in this first stanza. He needs to go the other way. It's going to be safer that way. By glow of the taillight, I stumbled back of the car, telling this narrator is walking around the car to the deer, and stood by the heap, a doe, a recent killing. She had stiffened already, almost cold. Now, I don't believe this narrator hit this deer. I don't think this is the guy or girl who hit this deer. I believe he or she came up into the scene, made the decision, you have to pull the deer out of the way or someone else is going to get hurt. I dragged her off. She was large in the belly. Now, for anyone who knows about animals who get hit on the side of the road, when an animal is hit and had been there for a while, and especially if it's hot out or something, which we don't know the temperature in this poem, but an animal bloats. So it's very typical to see a bloated deer or any other dead animal on the side of the road. So this sentence doesn't have much of a meaning until the next stanza. My fingers touching her side brought me the reason. So the narrator here is very inquisitive. He doesn't just, oh, okay, she's bloated, let's just drag her off. He stops for a sec. He or she stops for a second. Her side was warm. Her fawn lay there waiting, alive, still, never to be born. Now, in these lines, the narrator realizes that this doe was pregnant, and that even the doe has gone on. The fawn is still alive inside. And at this point, the story really takes a turn. The tone really changes, and that's to help the theme between making the right decision or going the easy path. And beforehand, the theme was, I would say, more of reason, just survival. And in here, it changes to, what do I do? To, should I do the right thing or should I go the easy way? And in this stanza, my favorite line, her side was warm, her fawn lay there waiting, comma, alive, comma, still, never to be born. Now, focus on the word here, still. It is broken up from the entire other line because it can be used in two different ways. Alive, still, never to be born. It could be, first way, alive, still as in not moving, never to be born. I took still as not moving to be it's not going to move forward in its life. Not just the movement's restricted, but here in the free verse of the poem, the fawn isn't free anymore. Its decision has been made. It is going to die. But how it's going to die is up to the narrator. And just that one little word hit me home in my interpretation, because I felt that here the narrator really hits, what should I do? What is the right decision for this fawn? And that's why in the final line of this third stanza, beside that mountain road I hesitated. He stops. She stops and thinks for a minute. Which is dangerous, given it's on the mountainside road. She could be hit. But instead of taking the human nature to survive, they take a moment. And that's a big thing for this narrator here. The car aimed ahead its lowered parking lights. Cars cannot aim. However, the lights are our aim, which is personification. Under the hood purred the steady engine. Again, I stood in the glare of the warm exhaust turning red. Now, you can take the literal meaning of warm exhaust. The brake lights are on. You can see the red tint to the air. But I chose to interpret this, not the literal meaning, but to symbolize the thinking process of this narrator. The narrator's going to be flushed. Face is going to be red. She's going to be standing there thinking, what do I do? There's going to be red light on them. But this is a big moment. What did they do? And that's why I really like warm exhaust turning red. Turning red as in the narrator's turning red, not the air around them from the brake lights. Around our group, the narrator, the dead doe, and the fawn, I could hear the wilderness listen. The wilderness being the nature around them. Now I'm sure there are animals around them listening, watching, but at this point this is not an animalistic battle here. This is a human nature battle. And no one is around to see what this person does. The narrator has a decision here. Push the doe off into the canyon, push her off into the river, which will be a gentle death for the fawn, or drive on and just pretend it never happened. 3 decisions here this narrator could do. And even though no one's around to watch, he or she stops and pauses and thinks for a second about what should they do. And this is a big thing on this narrator's human nature here. You know, if he or she chooses the easy way, or to just walk on and like it never happened, I feel like this narrator was going to be haunted by that for the rest of their life. And that's why, in the end, you'll see, the narrator does the right thing. And I think that is a big part of this person's inner growth. And in the future decisions that he or she has to make, they're going to make the right decision as well, because they've done it before. And this says a lot on this narrator's persona. Stafford does a wonderful job of giving these characters that don't have a name, we don't know anything about them, but gives them such humanistic qualities that we see in ourselves and in others around us. He tells so much more about a person than just spelling it out. It's reading in between the lines, and that's what I really like about this poem. Now, in the final 2 lines, the last part, I thought hard for us all. For him, her, the fawn, and the dead doe, which at this point, I feel like of us all, the doe doesn't matter here. He's really thinking about the person, the narrator, his inner self, and the fawn. My only swerving. Now notice, in the first stanza, 4th line, to swerve might make more dead. Swerve here, my only swerving, stands as decision. My only swerving, my only decision. He's thinking about what he's going to do. Should he protect himself, or should he try to help this fawn that has already claimed a fate? Then pushed her over the edge into the river. Again, Stafford uses edge to symbolize the edge of life. And at this point, he tips the doe off into the edge to final final judgment. There's no going back. He's gone over the edge. The doe's over the edge. No going back. But I like how the last three words are into the river. This poem could have gone completely different if he had said into the canyon. That's what I really, because he stated this at the very, very end of the poem, the climax hits there. The rising action is so abrupt, it kind of just smacks you, because you hit the climax and smack, falling action, the ending, you know? It hits you all at once, and that is what Stafford is really trying to get across here. He's using this free verse form, basically a lot like a river, a lot like life, to showcase human nature and humanistic qualities in a very literal sense of hitting a deer. I'm sure many of you have hit deer before, have come close, and you don't really realize what happens. But he uses this experience to showcase this narrator's human nature. And in the end, the narrator makes the right choice. And it could have gone totally different if he had said canyon. But Stafford, that was part of Stafford and how he wrote. He was not into the social trends or, what's hot right now during his time, even though he lived through 1914, 1995, so he wouldn't have used those terms, hot right now. But Stafford used this instant to really showcase how people are. He was big into nature, Stafford really was. He worked outside a lot. He soil engineering with a conservationist group. And actually, when you think of a writer, you think of them writing at night. No, Stafford actually got up early to write, which is really, really cool. He wrote over 20,000 works, but he was only 46 when they finally got published. So Stafford, an amazing man who did everything in the later parts of his life. He died in 1995, 1 year before I was born. I'll never get to meet the man, but I really hope you got something out of this poem about yourself, about how we are as a human group, what we do through life, everything. And I want to leave you with this final quote that I took from William Stafford in 1971. Oh no, I've lost it. In 1971 interview. I keep following this sort of hidden river in my life, Whatever the topic or impulse which comes, I follow it along trustingly. And I don't have any sense of its coming to a kind of crescendo or of its petering out either. It is just going steadily along. And I felt that quote by Stafford, which is found on the Wikipedia site, link below, can go hand in hand with this poem. Traveling through the dark. We are going through life, traveling through the dark, not knowing if we're going to hit a crescendo or if we're going to peter out. And that's why this decision that this narrator made in this poem really is going to be a big moment in their life, even though it's not like the birth of a child or a marriage, but this moment is going to define who they are as a person. And they're going to grow upon this because they made the right choice. So I hope you take a lot from this poem and you read more on Stafford, look him up, follow my links. There's actually an image of him below. So if you have any questions or concerns, you can comment here or message me, doesn't matter. Thank you very much for watching.